I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Rhett, would you like to lead us in the
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the meeting of June 21. Is there a motion?
I'll motion here.
Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Rhett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any public comments? Anyone signed up to speak? Okay. All right, Whitney is going to be here with us to give the local labor monitor report, and we appreciate your being here. I understand there's.
Yes, Kevin's father passed away. Good meeting. So I'm filling in. It's been a while since I've done this. I was.
Yeah.
So.
Very sorry to hear that. You're very kind.
So the report covers site visits between June 1st and June 20th. We made 80 site visits. We had to make 10 follow-ups. We checked residents with 604 workers. Of those workers, there were 19 non-compliance, 9 of which were no proof of residence, so a follow-up visit was required. 7 were from out of the area, and 3 had an invalid ID. The USRE Manitou project is currently at 69.9%. They're subject to 70%. And as of June 30th, all monitored sites are in compliance. We delivered 2 new signs to 1365 Emerson and Aurora.
Thank you. Questions, Troy?
The Amazon site with now the internal, are they still badging in as the construction people, the electricians, the millwrights that are setting the conveyor?
I don't know, actually. I will find out. That's a good question. I'm not sure if they use, I know that badging system was set up specifically for the contractors, and I don't know if it got transferred over to the interior fit. So I'll make sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the local labor report for exemptions. Brian is here. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I have 2 local labor exemption requests to report on today. The first one is related to the Li-Cycle North American Hub project. And for this piece of the project, They were looking for, to use Gilbert Industries out of Missouri to provide the prefabricated, they had huge tanks ranging from 40,000 gallon tanks to a 485,000 gallon tank. They get shipped to the site via rail car, they get assembled on site and welded on site. And they were submitted, an approval or request to use Gilbert Industries out of Missouri to do that entire process. And it's a proprietary process that they use to raise the pieces of the tanks off of the cars and get them in place, get them spec'd, and then welded. And there's nobody locally that has the ability to do the whole process from beginning to end.
So we do have letters from Fogler denying the opportunity to bid and or install.
No, so this went out to bid prior to using Robex, as we discussed. So for Li-Cycle coming forward, they're using Robex, the Rochester Builders Exchange platform, to process or to bid and solicit bids for all the projects. This one was done outside of Robex because it was before the application process was done with COMIDA. So it did not go through Robex. But subsequent ones that were similar to this, where they had bolted tanks, did not get any local bids on that work.
So for the board, I did reach out locally for people interested in doing this work. And work through Brian. And when Brian responded back to the question, are these folded, are they welded? Originally it was, it's welded, and then it was bolted, and now it's welded and bolted. Contractors locally weren't given the information and weren't comfortable to bid this at a 2-week time frame. These tanks we're talking about are 17 tanks. So the smallest one's 41,000 gallons, the largest one's 435,000 gallons. This Gilbert was probably working on designing these tanks for 2 to 3 years, minimum, when we were given an opportunity to bid on it in 2 weeks. So I would just make aware to the board on Li-Cycle and future waivers and how and why local labor is losing this work. This is going to be an exorbitant amount of work lost by the way that Li-Cycle is putting this out to bid and pre-buying materials and then asking our local contractors to only bid labor. So I just want to make the board aware that this is the first of many to come. And I don't feel the local labor and contractors and vendors have had a fair shake.
So in this instance, I'll just add a little bit to that. So in this instance, they were looking for 10 workers, right, total, and the 10 workers did the overall process from beginning to end for this proprietary system. My understanding of the process is that only one of them are going to be doing welding. The other 9 are going to be operating or installing through their proprietary system, which involves lifting and cranes and different types of things. So the question for us when we were processing this was, how far down do you unravel this process, right? It's an entire process from A to Z, and pulling out certain parts of it. To Troy's point, like we might have someone here locally, obviously, that can do the welding, but having a company come and having this proprietary system and installation method and trying to pull out or carve out certain small pieces of it doesn't make sense, in my opinion.
Brian, a couple of questions when I hear proprietary. Why isn't that warranty, which would then trigger at least?
We could have probably processed this as a warranty situation too, but I didn't, we processed it.
If we do warranty, then at least we get, we get some people working on it, right? We get the apprentice and
We inquired about that.
we do get some, like I said, proprietary, when I hear that, it triggers warranty. And I want to address something that Troy said. We should be very, very careful that when someone goes out to bid to local labor, that it is actually a fair bid. Red flags should go off when we get 0 bids back if something is put on the builder's exchange. And I'll tell you that from my world, you know, we're design professionals. If we put something out and 0 bids come back, that's a big problem. That means we did not make it clear. Yes, our documents weren't clear, there was a constructability issue, because there's enough talent here in the trades to do almost anything. And if somebody puts something out there, so an example, what I heard from Troy was that, and this is going on a little bit now with the supply chain constraints, is that owners are now buying product and they're asking the labor to come in and install it, but still carry the warranty. That's a very difficult situation for a contractor because they don't know the product. They lose chain of custody. You know, if that product shows up on site, was it damaged because of transit? You know, it starts to get into a mess if it doesn't work. And then the contractors take on the risk that they're not fully able to control. So when something like that comes out and the owners are buying product, they're at least relieving the contractors of that risk, because it's not fair to ask the contractors to take on risk they can't control. So all I'm saying is just the virtue of the fact of putting it on the builder's exchange may not be enough. When we see 0 bids come back, that ought to trigger a deeper dive as to what happened. Were those documents and what was put out fair? And if it wasn't, I think we should address it and be very careful about giving them a waiver. Now, if it was fair and, you know, people just are too busy, different story. But I don't want someone's finger on the scale.
I think that's a great point. And to that extent, we've been working with Ken Gaylord over at the Builders Exchange to try to work through. In the beginning, there were some challenges with the way that they structured some of the bids that were on Robex, right? Some of the financial structures of how it was set up was not common, or the contractors around here were not real familiar with how they were pricing some of this stuff. So we have gone back and forth with Kim to make sure that everybody here has a legitimate chance to do that. So I think we have gotten better at that. This is the first time we've used the Robex platform.
Totally understand.
So I think we've gotten better, and to the extent that Kim has noticed any problems, we've worked with Lifecycle to try to get those tightened up. Secondly, one other point I think that we also have to keep in mind is a pretty big project. And I don't think some of the local contractors can meet the timelines in some instances, or they're already busy.
And it's fair if they can't meet the timeline, provided that the timeline, you know, was
fair.
If Lifecycle knew about the timeline, but isn't putting it out on the Builders Exchange in a timely fashion, that to me is a very different story than if they're putting it out and they know about it and nobody's building. As long as the contractors and our local laborers give it a fair shake, if they can't or don't have the capacity, I think that's a different story than if they're not given the fair shake. And I just want to
agree. And I think
and I'm happy to, you know, like I said, be wary when you get asked questions when you don't get any bids back.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on with that, because they've had a number.
To take a look at.
They've had a number that I think recently haven't gotten any. I mean, and they come to us concerned, why aren't we getting local contractors to bid on some of this stuff? So we do have to be sensitive to that.
And we've talked about this before, so we really should try to follow through.
Well, economic development includes not only local labor, local contractors, local vendors. Keep that sales tax exemption inside New York, which isn't happening right now. It isn't going to happen with MassTech. They are going to purchase all this stuff from out of state because we know it's cheaper to do business outside of New York. And the sales tax is an 8%. And they're going to buy as much of this product they can to build this. So economic development here for the 130 million incentive is missing some Legos in this block here that's gonna cause, it's gonna trickle down effect. It's not fully an economic development project, in my opinion, right now.
Okay, so this one's already been processed.
Can we look at this one? Is it too late to come back and say this is a warranty issue, so at least get an apprentice on here?
We inquired about getting someone locally to take part in that process, and Gilbert was not comfortable for safety reasons on putting apprentice or somebody on that project.
What was the safety reason?
Yeah, OSHA safety is national.
Their proprietary process.
It's in their mind, and perhaps we should have processed it as a warranty. I don't know if that would have made any difference. But the fact of the matter is they have a proprietary process which they utilize from beginning to end, and they were not comfortable for liability purposes putting somebody else on that site.
Can we push on that? Because part of the reason is to get the apprentice and get some of that knowledge local. If we lose out on the installation, that's terrible. But then if we lose out on maintenance going forward, that's even more. I mean, those are the things that I think I'd like to try and avoid. So I don't know if it's possible to push on that, to at least get some of that knowledge, because there's a lot of tanks, they're big, they're gonna need to be maintained as well. And as much as we can, it'd be good to have the
Yeah.
opportunity to do that work locally.
Is there another waiver on tanks in the queue right now?
There's another waiver for the bolted tanks. So these tanks come, right, prefabricated, they come here, they're put together, they're installed, and they're welded. There's a second set of tanks, or a second type of tanks, that went through the Builders Exchange platform, and these are bolted as opposed to welded. Same type of thing, but bolted. That was on the Builders Exchange. We didn't receive any bids locally for that.
Could we dig into why? Were those documents clear? Like I said,
Sure.
when you get 0 bids, that to me is a big risk.
And then they reached out locally to specific companies based on information that they got from.
Yes. So in that regard, Kim Gaylord over at Robex has been, I could probably get evidence of it, but they've been reaching out to contractors, trying to inquire with them, like, why aren't we getting bids? Like, why are you guys, what's the problem with this? What's the problem with that? And in the beginning, there was some challenges with the bids that were there, and the structure of the bids. I think we have that worked out. I don't think that's any longer an issue. But we can dig a little further to see what was discouraging the local contractors from bidding on that. I don't know if it's a timing issue, schedule.
And if you do hear that, obviously, you're letting Troy know, if you wouldn't mind just,
Yep.
looping me in, because this is
Sure.
it's a big issue industry-wide. We've had to change how we go out to bid to.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We do have a number that haven't received any bids from local contractors.
And it could be that they're busy, but just want to make sure it's not the documents.
I understand the safety in the welding, but the safety in the bolting, this is construction 101.
Yeah, I was shocked. they
This
didn't
is a
get bids.
perfect opportunity to get a local apprentice on site.
Okay, all good suggestions. Ryan?
Okay. The second one, I do have another one. It was with, for the Plug Power, project. And this one was, the local 13, the plumbing and pipe fitting. Union was at full employment. And, with them being at full employment, they were not able to provide enough labor for that project. So they reached out to us and, inquired about using some sister locals or resources from other locals. I was able to reach out to local 13, spoke with them and confirmed that they were working with Plug Power, they were at full employment, and they were looking to get approved to bring in some resources from sister locals.
Any other questions on that? All right, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Greg, how are we doing?
Good, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Takes up a lot of time, so I'll be quick. How convenient. Financials through our fiscal year, 6 months in, continue to capitalize on a strong first 6 months. Like I said, I think it's going back and looking at, 5 or 6 years back. I don't call any year being as strong as we are through the first 6 months. Focus on our statement of financial position and our cash and cash balances, which really represent 90% of our net assets. A little over $1 million growth over where we were at December. Average cash balance has been at about $8 million over the past 4 years. So before we allocated some funds to the modernization plan, we're at about $10 million, which is a couple $1 million over our average balance. That restricted cash, as we've been talking about, is the $2.5 million of seed money from the COMIDA balances that is going to be used for workforce development programs. In addition to the 2.5, 10% of our fee revenue year to date goes to that until we spend that money. And you'll see on our dashboard report, we're trying to build a rolling balance. So we've generated 2.5, added 265. We've already allocated 400,000 for a project allocated to that. I know there's a couple other vendors and programs we're looking at. So you'll see that currently we're at about 2.3 million. That's not committed as of June 30th. Our prepaid expenses really represent our PTAC funding, and then our part of our county comprehensive plan that we funded last year. So that's the majority of that $130,000. The accrued liabilities, again, that just represents timing differences. We don't get bills from all of our programs every single month, but we do account for them. And those, really 3 big amounts are from our Empower programs, and then the annual county contract that we, record every single quarter. So again, statement of activities, revenue, $2.6 million through the first 6 months, more than last year, which was, again, now that's our second best year on record. We, again, fully anticipate this continuing. We do got a couple big projects in July closing. So, like I said, I think for us to think anything other than getting to that $4 or $5 million mark, that's the expectation at this point. Again, it all depends on really what gets closed. We have approved, you'll see on the dashboard what we've approved this year. But again, of that $2.6 million, half of that really represents projects that were approved in 2022, and half of that really represents projects that were approved in 2021 and prior. So again, remember, we approve them, but then they sometimes don't close. So half that revenue that we have recorded so far represents only some from this year and some from prior years. Program community development, again, putting money back that we're generating back into certain programs. That $564,000 really represents our Empower programs, GRE, PTAC, the County Comprehensive Plan, Monroe 5G, Jazz Fest, Soul Fest. So the amount of funds that we're generating, we're putting back in those programs, which is a little bit more than what we have done in prior years. Overall, like I said, very strong, $1.5 million excess of revenue over expenses through 6 months. We certainly anticipate that's going to continue. And then just to understand where we are from a project commitment standpoint, through the past 12 months, we have committed about $5.29 million of projects, right, which includes the $2.5 million of the workforce development, but all the other things that we have kind of set aside for. So as you're looking at projects, coming before you today and future projects, that's the number that we have really approved over the last 12 to 13 months.
So if you look at the budgeted revenue versus what we've received today, that's still not inclusive of the larger number that's been approved. So, but
yeah, that number is closer to $7 million, I would say, of stuff that we approved that has not been closed.
We haven't seen yet, yeah. But that was a pretty modest budget.
And again, it's always hard to, I would tell you over the last, 5 or 6 years, it's been pretty consistent. It's like $2 million a year, $2 million a year, $2 million, $2 million, $1.8, $2 million, excluding any bond financing funding. So absent anything else, you try to just be somewhat conservative and realistic, and, you know, you kind of hope for the best. And I think the biggest thing is we're generating the revenue and the projects and all the support, but also putting money back into all the things
I
that
was just
we've
gonna say
approved.
that we're putting
That's why
back
that
into
$5 million
Yeah.
is a
Right.
great testament to the board and everyone else that's focused on that.
Okay, great. Any questions for Craig?
Craig, I got a question for you. 625,159 property and equipment.
That's the Brew Road property.
Go ahead.
Any other questions for Craig? All right, thank you very much. Good job. Okay, first item on the agenda for projects is Flower City Roll-Off LLC. Anna?
Flower City Roll-Off LLC is constructing a 6,000 square foot metal building in the city of Rochester that will serve as an office, mechanical garage, and as storage for equipment. Flower City Roll-Off is a locally owned family business that has been operating for 13 years. This new building will allow staff mechanics the ability to self-service their fleet of trucks. Flower City Roll-Off plans to create 2 new FTEs in addition to its existing 8 FTEs. The $568,600 project is seeking a real property tax abatement and sales tax exemption. The cost to benefit ratio is 41:1.
Thank you, Anna. So Jamie?
Hi there, I'm Jamie Holtz, and this is my dad, Jim Holtz.
Okay, welcome. So, can you elaborate further on the project? Tell us more.
I'll let Dad do that.
Sure.
That's,
Well,
I know the numbers.
like
You
you
gotta
said,
do construction.
it's 6,000 square feet building. We're going to add 2 new mechanics, and actually another driver also if we added by the time we get up and running. We don't have a facility right now, and part of the reason we're asking for this exemption is the cost of everything went up so much in the past 2 years. You know, it took us 18 months to get permits from the city of Rochester, and just the steel alone went up almost 30%. You know, it was pretty significant. Price of concrete went up, labor, everything. You know, it's been everything just seems to be going up, which I'm sure everybody knows that. So that's part of that. So we've been doing this 13 years, continuously growing every year. 3 years ago, we had about a 50% growth in business. You know, we do almost $3 million a year, which is a significant amount of money, but, you know, there's price of trucks almost doubled in the past 4 years. You know, we just bought 2 new trucks, they were $250,000 a piece, you know, but the amount of repairs will go down with those newer trucks, but we still need 2 mechanics. And so one welder, 1 mechanic, basically. So,
I would like to say too, in the industry we're in, our biggest competitors are giant national companies like Casella Waste and Waste Management. So when Casella bought out all our local companies, that's what made that huge influx of customers for us. And we've been trying to keep up with, you know, the incoming business and keep our customers happy and coming back while the cost of everything to provide our services like dumpsters and trucks has just skyrocketed. So we're in a very great situation because, you know, our services are needed and wanted, but the cost to provide them is
the price of dumpsters went from like 3,500 to almost 7,000 for one dumpster.
My goodness.
It's huge.
Well, you should be congratulated for hanging in there and the locally owned business successful.
This guy, 3
Glad to
employees.
see you growing in spite of all the supply chain issues and costs and so forth. All right, there was a public hearing. No comments? Okay. So I'll ask you a few local labor questions.
Okay.
Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yeah.
And do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
No,
No,
no exemption.
No.
It's all
On my card.
I'm your paperwork.
And are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. The secret process is complete, and now we can move forward with the reading of the resolution on
A regular meeting of the County of Monroe.
I'm-
Done.
I motion to waive the reading of the resolutions and further.
I second.
Is a motion to, we all have copies in our packets, we've all read them. So moved by Troy, seconded by Joe. Any other comments on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, so I will at this point ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a real property tax abatement and sales tax exemption. And I'll take thank you. Been moved and seconded, moved by Lisa, seconded by Red. Any other comments on that? All right, I'll take
Congratulations.
I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Troy?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yes.
Rhett?
Yay.
And Ann is a yay. Sounds unanimous.
Awesome.
Congratulations. Best of luck to you. The next item, Whitney Housing.
Whitney Housing One LLC is proposing to construct a 41-unit expansion in the town of Perrington on the Legends at Whitney, a market-rate senior apartment project. The proposed expansion consists of 32 one-bedroom and 9 two-bedroom units. Units will be marketed to individuals 55 years and over, with 10% of the new units being income restricted for qualifying households making 60% or less of the county area median income. Whitney Housing plans to create 3 new FTEs in addition to its existing 2.5 FTEs. The $8 million project is seeking a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax, and sales tax exemption. The cost to benefit ratio is 8-to-1.
Thanks, Anna. Jim Taylor.
Thank you, sir. I'm Jim Taylor with Whitney Housing One. As Anna explained, it's really a continuation of a very successful project. About 6 years ago, this board granted us benefits to move forward with Whitney Town Center as a mixed-use development. 151 apartments, about 20,000 square feet of retail space. At this point, I can tell you that the apartments have been 100% occupied. We have a waiting list of approximately 70 people for the one-bedroom apartments right now, so there's definitely a market demand in this area. But what's made this, or allowed us to be successful is the fact that we're providing a very affordable, very modestly priced product in the marketplace right now. So, again, we're looking forward to the approval to move forward on this. We've received town board special permit for the construction on this site. We received secret from the planning board in town of Perrington, so all permits are in place. We're ready to move forward with this board.
You've got some pictures for us?
Probably a rendering. We like to show off the building. The planning board likes to see all the trees and vegetation we're putting in front of it. So we have a whole combination.
So there are the trees.
I'm sorry?
So there are the trees.
There are the trees, yeah, we see a lot of trees, and that's good. The object is it's a very walkable, it's a very suburban feel, and it's very much part of the community. People from Fairport are moving into single-family homes and into these homes. I did mention this is a $55 for a senior project, and it's become a very popular place for locals, Eastsiders to relocate as they vacate their homes.
Great.
We get that, and just to give you a little context, this is the parcel that we're talking about. So 1.4 acres right along Whitney Road. This became available in 2019. We bought it for strategic purposes, just trying to maintain the integrity of the remainder of the project. This being the commercial portion. Sorry, Rachel wants to see this. This being the commercial building, these being the 3 existing apartment buildings. We bought to maintain integrity. Initially looked at doing retail or more commercial space up there, then COVID hit, and dynamics have changed. Now, obviously, if you all read the papers, you see what's happening with respect to demand for housing, senior housing in particular in this community where there's a dire shortage. So, being brilliant guys that we are, we read the papers too, said maybe we should switch this from a commercial building to a residential, and that's what we came up with now. It's a 3-story, about 46,000 square feet, 41 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, and as I said, we already have 70 people on the waiting list, so we don't feel that we're going to have much problem. And then on top of that, 10% of these units are going to be affordable. That opens us up to a different segment of the population and makes it more accessible for everyone.
So the units that were already constructed, were they market rate or low income or senior?
It's market rate senior, but as market rate goes, it's most of the product that's out there now. Toward the high end of the market rate. These are very moderately priced. Single 1-bedroom is 11 to 1,200 square foot, $1 per month range. 2-bedroom is under 1,600. That includes your heat, your wireless internet, your high-speed internet, your cable TV. So I mean, it includes a lot of amenities, makes it a very affordable product for a lot of people.
Okay, do we have questions?
So when you break down affordable and market, are they the same square footage?
Yeah, I definitely units. Yeah, we're not building special units, but that's a good question.
I think we have more information on page 55 of that.
That's the medium amount right now.
Are there any of the restricted that are 2-bedroom?
Yes. And again, the majority of the demand we're seeing today is 1-bedroom, and a lot of that has to do with pricing. People are looking for lower cost. And frankly, a lot of the seniors just need 1-bedroom. But we do offer 2-bedroom.
Okay, any other questions?
When do you anticipate them being available?
We're expecting to get it done by the end of summer next year. Poised to close on this next week. If all the stars and planets align, we'll see. Poised to close next week, start construction in August, and be done by the year.
Okay, other questions? All right, there was a public hearing on this project held on July 14th. Are there any comments? I'll ask you some local labor questions. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yeah.
And do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
There's the usual outstanding, it has to do Gyp Creek, it's Gyp Creek underlayment. If we find a local source for Gyp Creek, we utilize all of the trades and materials we purchase local.
On the local Gyp Creek, a lot of people would be willing to hire.
Yeah, right.
Are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance? All right, the seeker process is complete. We have waived the reading of the resolution. I'll ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax exemption, and sales tax exemption. Moved by Jay, seconded by Rhett. Any additional comments or questions? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yay.
Troy?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yes.
Rhett?
Yay.
And Andy said yay.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Continued success to you.
Come out and see us next week.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Now we have a whole bunch of modifications. Hopefully we'll just race right through them fully. Okay, the first one is Wolf Solar.
And Wolf Solar LLC is developing a 3.6 megawatt solar energy project on an approximately 43-acre portion of an approximately 96-acre parcel of land in the town of Sweden. In January 2022, the project was approved for sales and mortgage recording tax exemptions. The applicant is requesting approval to approve the sales and mortgage tax exemptions. This is considered a new project and therefore is subject to the updated renewable energy policy approved in March of 2022.
Okay, do we have Carson Lyon and Pat with us? Would you like to Sure.
add any
Go ahead.
additional
Go ahead.
comments?
Okay. Hi, good to see the IDA today. I'm Carson Wyman from CB North America, Senior Business Developer.
So I'm Pat Goodell with Saturn Power, the previous owner of both solar panels.
You want to
Yeah,
elaborate any
so-
further on this?
Sure. I'll give a little background. This is the sister project to the Mantisi project,
Right.
which is next up on the agenda.
Right.
They're both in the town of Sweden. They're both developed by Saturn Power, mostly Pat, over the past couple of years. And we're the long-term owner and operator. So we purchased both projects from Saturn. They're part of a larger 13 project portfolio for CBE. So we're starting construction on most of the 13 projects by the end of the year. We'll be the long-term owner and operator, monitoring projects, sending maintenance as needed. We've selected the contractor, CS Energy. We're working with the town in the school district on pilots, and we should break ground in September. So we're just looking to take over ownership of this application with the IDA and work with Robin to close before construction.
And you bring your own teams of people in to do this?
Yeah, so CS Energy, they're a third-party contractor. They help us with the final engineering, procurement of the materials, and then the construction. They would hire all the contractors. So it's probably about 30 to 40 for each site.
So unless we have local labor that's been through the training, how do we modify that so that going forward?
Well, there was a new law signed this week. This will be falling under prevailing rate as it's over 1 megawatt. So CS Energy would more than likely be reaching out to our local folks.
So that's a new requirement as of March, prevailing wage.
Good. And it's a New York State requirement, not an IDA requirement.
Yes, for those things.
For all days.
No.
Also,
Next
you know,
requirement.
Can we clarify, my understanding was, NYSERDA has told us after April 14th, I believe it was, would be in effect. So the guidance I've received from NYSERDA is these would not be subject to prevailing wage. I can't comment on your commercial discussions with CS Energy, but I'm just looking for clarification.
Yeah, that would be clarification. So it's not an IDA specific legislation. That would be the Department of Labor and Britain Court on that.
Okay.
Troy's our local labor representative. Just want to make sure aware of the.
Isn't it based on date of interconnection with NYSERDA?
To Rachel's point, let's take this offline and speak to the Department of Labor and Troy, I'm sure would happily provide some added color offline.
Yeah, this is very fresh, very new.
Very.
Fair enough. Appreciate you bringing it up.
Okay, any questions from the board on this? All right. We'll waive the reading of the resolution. On the assumption, the motion to approve the assignment of the mortgage reporting tax exemption and sales tax exemption. Is there a motion? Moved by Troy, seconded by Joe. Any additional comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then the Mantisi Solar.
Mantisi Solar LLC is developing a 5 megawatt solar energy project on an approximately 34-acre portion of an approximately 71-acre parcel of land in the town of Sweden. In January 22, the project was approved for sales and mortgage reporting tax exemptions, and the applicant is requesting an approval to assume the sales and mortgage tax exemptions. This also is considered a new project and therefore subject to the updated renewable energy policy approved in March of 2022.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay. I'll waive the reading of the resolution, and I'll ask for a motion to approve the assignment of the mortgage recording tax exemption and sales tax exemption. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Troy. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, appreciate it.
The next modification is Fed I love these names, Fed Y Way.
Thank you, Ann. 135 Fedway Way LLC, a real estate holding company, constructed a 7,300 square foot commercial building on 1.5 acres in the town of Gates and is leased to Grove Roofing Services Incorporated, a union commercial roofing company. In March of 2016, this project was approved for a Jobs Plus property tax abatement. The applicant is now requesting approval to assume the Jobs Plus property tax abatement. The applicant currently owns the building across the street and is hoping to expand operations in the future.
And we have Steve Capizzi with us.
Hello.
Welcome. That was
So, yeah, we bought the piece of property, or we're trying to buy the piece of property across the street from our existing operation, so we are looking for expansion. So when I realized that they had the tax abatement, I applied to have it transferred to us.
All right, any questions on that? All right. I'll ask for a motion to approve the sale of the facility and assignment of the real property tax abatement. Moved by Joe, seconded by Brett. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Lord. Thank you. Thank you.
Genesis Vision.
Genesis Vision Incorporated, DBA Rochester Optical Manufacturing Company, is renovating an existing building in the city of Rochester for its limited lab division. In December of 2021, the project was approved for a sales and mortgage property tax exemption. The applicant is now seeking a sales tax extension through December 31st of 2022 due to supply chain and logistic difficulties.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion to approve. Well, are there any questions? Okay. I'll ask for a motion to approve an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31, 2022. Moved by Joe, seconded by Brett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Joe, 3750 Monroe Avenue.
Dell 3750 Monroe Avenue, Monroe Avenue Associates LLC, a real estate holding company, is renovating an existing portion of a building in the town of Pittsford for a new tenant, Integron LLC. In June of 2021, the applicant received a sales tax exemption on construction materials. In August of 2021, this board approved an increase in project costs. In December of 2021, the board approved an additional increase in project costs and an extension of the sales tax exemption through June 30th of 2022. The applicant is now requesting an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31st of 2022 due to additional space expansion and additions.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31, 2022.
So moved.
I'll second. Moved by Brett, seconded by Lisa. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Riverwood Tech Campus.
Riverwood Tech Campus LLC is redeveloping the former Kodak Marketing Education Center in the town of Henrietta. This project received board approval in October of 2015 for a custom property tax abatement, as well as sales and mortgage reporting tax exemptions. The project was approved for an extension on the sales tax exemption in 2019, 2020, and in 2021, as well as $21.9 million increase in project costs in November of 2019. The applicant is now seeking an extension of the sales tax exemption through June 30th of 2023, as the project is still under construction for new tenants.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve an extension of the sales tax exemption through June 30, 2023. Moved by Jay, seconded by Troy. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, thank you. One abstention. Thank you, Lisa. All right, so motion approved. The Sibley Commercial LLC.
Sibley Commercial LLC was originally approved for a custom real property tax abatement for the redevelopment of the former Sibley's department store in 2012. In 2016, the project was approved for sales and mortgage reporting tax exemptions. In June of 2021, the applicant was approved for an extension of the sales tax exemption through June 30th of 2022. The applicant is requesting an increase in project costs of $3,413,633.23 and an extension of the sales tax exemption through June 30th of 2023 due to tenant improvement fit out of the remaining commercial space necessary to fully occupy and stabilize the commercial space. The new sales tax exemption is not to exceed $586,728. New tenants include Smola Consulting, which provides benefit consulting services, Emerge, which provides business consulting services, Dunn Goodwin, which is a marketing firm, Boundless Connections, which is a technology company, and SDH Capital, which is an investment firm. The total project cost is now $17,861,292.23.
Thanks, Anna. Kevin Corcoran?
If you want.
Oh, that's right, we're calling back.
If you want to give me just a second.
The idea was to have him available for questions.
Hi, Kevin. It's Robin from COMIDA calling. Hi, I have you on speakerphone in front of our board, 6 members here. Andrew's our chair, and she's going to ask you some questions, ask that you make some comments on the requested increase.
Absolutely. I also have the C10 grade, so VP of operations at the building as well.
Can you elaborate on the increases? This is Amber.
Yes, absolutely. So when we initially submitted the budget, we're going back probably 6 or 7 years ago. That was our original comment, vanilla box, for the entire space. But since then, the project has experienced significant tenancy that required a large amount of TI spend to be ready project among the various tenants that was not in the original scope budget. So essentially, we invested a significant amount of dollars over the original budget from 6-7 years ago, which is the short answer what's causing the increase in the budget request.
Is construction complete as of now?
I would say it this way, we have, probably by the end of this year, we're going to have 120 or 130,000 square feet of space that still needs to be activated. To remind everybody, 8 years ago, there was about 200,000 square feet of the 1.1 million square feet occupied by MCC Bay and campus. And today we're probably at 950,000 square feet. But we still have 150,000 square feet. Well, less than 15% of the building, 150,000 square feet is a lot of space. So there's 2 things going on. One is the amount of space that we've gratefully reactivated. The increased cost of reactivation, especially in the past 2 years, has been significant. And if you guys measure our use, as you do on an annual basis, you can see the amount of that ability that we've done over the past 18 months and 24 months since the pandemic, which we're grateful for, but we still have a pretty sizable lift in front of us to get to completion.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I will ask for a motion to approve an increase in project costs of $3,413,634 and an extension of the sales tax exemption through June 30, 2023.
Before I take the vote,
Yes?
understand how grateful we are.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, so it's been moved by Jay, seconded by Joe. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks so much for the update and continued success to you, finding the remaining opportunities for the remaining space.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna hang up now. Rachel will be in touch.
Okay, 3453 Union Street.
3453 Union Street LLC Incorporated is constructing a building which will be used for the activation of temperature moderated or controlled space in addition to a food grade warehouse and distribution center. This is a new business venture for the tenant, C&M Forward. Phase 1 was approved by the board in June of 2018. In March of 2021, the project was approved for a real property tax abatement, mortgage reporting tax, and sales tax exemptions. The applicant and the tenant are now seeking an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31st of 2022 due to supply chain disruptions that have caused the project to be delayed for approximately 4 months.
Thanks, Anna. Any questions? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve an extension of the sales tax exemptions through December 31, 2022.
So
Moved by Red, seconded by Lisa.
Is this the project that we had an issue with?
What was the issue?
This is the Masons.
They got kicked off the site, which has now put them in delay, which we're now going to grant them an award for negative behavior.
If it's helpful at all, I will tell you, the project owner has been excellent and very responsive. He in fact called us, which is usually the other way. We're calling and checking in, how are things going? Called us, very apologetic, checking in, letting us know things are going well. I do believe this was on the GC level. And I think there was the indignation was coming at that level. I don't believe it was the owner. And so my point is I don't want to penalize the owner. I understand that he's responsible for the GC, but we had a number of conversations where it was very clear that the owner didn't know the full extent of what was going on.
Okay. So I'll ask for a motion then to approve an extension of the sales tax exemptions through December 31, 2022.
We have Brett and Lisa, we need a vote. We have the motion.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
all right. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Detail. All right, so the
Opposed on that.
okay, one in opposition. All right, Marketplace. This is a change in the pilot.
In furtherance of efforts to transform the Marketplace Mall, the Marketplace has requested that the agency amend the pilot agreement payment schedule with respect to 2023 Town of Henrietta and Monroe County tax years and the 2022-2023 Rush Henrietta Central School District tax year for the main mall parcel and the Macy's parcel pilot payments only. The town and school district have each granted their respective support for the agency and the Marketplace to amend and modify the terms of the pilot agreement.
Thank you, Anna. Any questions on this?
what's the modification?
Jay asked, what was the modification?
Oh, so it's a fixed pilot payment. I have the schedule of what they've negotiated for this tax year to the end. As we discussed, it's to try to reach a middle ground between what they would be paying if they went back on an assessment-based payment, full taxes, terminated the pilot, and what they would be paying, which is a fixed payment negotiated in 2014, before we saw what transpired for 2000.
Yeah, what they were saying, Jay, is that the value of the property's gone down so much that they're almost better off without the program, you pay less money than
Exactly.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I need a motion to amend and modify the terms of the pilot agreement. moved by Troy, seconded by Jay. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. One abstention. Oh, yes. Of course you do. All right, let's see, the next item on the agenda is an update on the compliance committee meeting that was held this morning. We had a review of the sales tax recapture report by Robin. We had a review of the unpaid pilot payments report. We agreed that we would send a second letter, second demand letter for any of those that are behind. And we also reviewed job compliance. And that's where as part of the pilot agreement, the project owner commits to hiring, a certain number of employees. So, and some have been able to do that and some have not, particularly during the COVID process. So the committee moved to grant waivers to those applicants who had submitted reasonable reasons for why they haven't quite met their job requirement, asking for a waiver. And so for anyone who was here on the compliance committee, any thoughts on that before we go ahead and vote? Okay. All right, so I will ask for a motion to grant a waiver to the following projects as identified by the following codes. I think it's the last two that we are not.
No, it's just 067.
It's just 067?
Yeah.
I thought there were two on that list.
They're not. I don't
Not on that list?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so motion to grant a waiver to the following projects is identified by project code 30A, 22A, 36A, 45A, 5A, 31A, 55A, 67A, 4A, 6A, 19A, and 42N. Did we get that right?
Yeah, I just see that I left that sheet. Put the one project on it twice.
Oh, that's
Are you with Leila?
Yeah, it was late. Any questions on the motion? Do we have a motion? I made the motion. Is there? Okay. Any comments on that question? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay, and there was no other business from the compliance committee to report on, so I will turn it over to our executive director for discussion items.
Thank you, Anne. Before I introduce the MAP program, I just want to recognize and introduce you all to two new economic development specialists that we recently brought onto our team. Mark Wilson and Connor Martin joined us last week. They will be working under Raquel and already learning a great deal. And Rachel walked them through a COMIDA presentation last week, and this is their first COMIDA meeting that they're observing. So welcome to Connor and Mark, and now we will be entertaining project applications that Mark and Connor will be working on in the future. Welcome.
Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce, oh yes.
Can I ask you to go into executive session, please, for a minute?
Yes, absolutely, sure.
So we just need a motion.
Or is there a motion? So you're making the motion and seconded by Jay. Any other comments, questions on that? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion approved. So we will go into executive session.